tone here. The important thing about this match is this could very much secure EDG's spot and at least securing the 3rd seed of the group, which would mean that they get that chance to play in the qualifier matches to either get into the Ascend group or still end up in the Nirvana group.
Yeah, I mean, Nirvana group, something both these teams very much going to want to avoid. It kind of looks like the path WE are unfortunately going to follow, but obviously we'll have to see after this game. Like you said, flying straight in, already got all the bans through and a couple of the picks. First pick, Rumble, is interesting. And Ambessa and into Galio as well as the return. And this is something that has been banned still a lot during the early stages of this split too. Letting it through is wild.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show how powerful some of the other picks that were banned by both teams have risen up in terms of priority to now let what we considered probably the most OP champion back in Split 1, permaban, not let through a single entire game save for like 1 or 2. But Monki will get his hands on it. Corki rounding out a little bit of that damage profile to guarantee you at least have 1 marksman on this, and they can still just go to mid lane and giving Taeyoon some flexibility in what kind of carry he wants to pilot. But reminding WE who got that player of the game, it was Xiaohao's Lilia who really ramped up a storm, getting the freedom to just farm for pretty much the entire first 15-20 minutes of the game. And you get to the team fight stage where, you know, WE so far have not been great at blocks. I'm just gonna put it bluntly.
No, they have been okay-ish during the laning phases and dire in the team fights. It's really been the failing here of WE, but it is a very interesting difference we've got right now between these two junglers, right? Especially in this matchup, Monki should have a lot of time to be able to do what he needs to in the early game. You're not too worried about a Lilia perma ganking. She's much more going to be looking to stay in the jungle, of course, and so that should open him up to be able to try gank onto these lanes. Monki has been kind of the only driving force, it's felt like, for this team. WE haven't really had anyone else particularly be that carry stepping up for them, especially not because they've been failing a little bit in these team fights. So early game, I'm very much going to be looking towards Monki. He's going to need some prior lanes to actually be able to play around because I don't feel like you have that right now.
Yeah, and even though Skarner does have some powerful CC pre-level 6 in the case of the Ishtal Impact, it is very predictable. So I feel like it's really going to come down to Vampire having a better facilitative support to try and make those ganks a lot more reliable, because like you said, you know, WE have been able to find a decent job of getting those advantages, you know, just going mid game when things kind of fall off the tracks here. But EDG being able to get rid of one of the champions that would have been a problem for them in that Poppy, and now immediately going for the Rel, noticing that, hey, WE banned the Alistar, which is a notable Rel counterpick, so that's a free way to just set that support right up for success.
Ooh, and we're gonna get the Ezreal here as well out of WE. We all heard Slayer talking about how he thinks that this one should be buffed, but in this kind of composition where you've got a good amount of range and a couple of tanks to sit in front of you, very much an Ezreal game, it doesn't really add any of the priority that we were talking about potentially needing for Monki. I still think Monki's gonna have a slightly tricky time actually finding lanes to gank early on. The Nautilus would make that a lot easier, and we're of course still yet to see the ADC. It's very, very rare to end up with your ADC being the red 5 pickup, but EDG clearly happy to just wait this one out. I was hoping it would be something even more aggressive because you're waiting until R5, but I think of the top tier of ADCs at the moment, the Kai'Sa makes a lot of sense. It can dive in alongside this composition very well, although it won't have so much sat in front of it to particularly protect it.
Yeah, you're really just looking at the Galio to be one of the main tools that will try and create space if WE ever push the gas pedal forward in terms of engage. But it's, when you look at WE's composition, it's very flexible in directions that they want to go, because all the dive that EDG have really assembled for themselves, you have Impale from Skarner to try and hold the front line diving through. You have an Equalizer to slow him down, and both Corki and Ezreal are very good at kiting and being able to just play back, front to back team fights. You know, the Nautilus is the one champion that it's like, okay, Nautilus would prefer to go forward, right? But at least, you know, Depth Charge and the CC train that he's got in his kit, it at least will help, you know, create some space additionally for these two carries. But once again, the fact that WE has not really shown a proclivity to being strong in these team fight situations, this is, I think, WE's last chance, the last Hail Mary of saying, hey guys, let's prove to ourselves that we can actually pilot a composition like this. Because if I'm going to be honest, Bloxer. You know, there's a lot of teams in the entire world that specialize in, you know, a lot of things, whether it's trying to be good at the early game, trying to be good in split pushing and macro. But at some fundamental level, every team should be fairly decent at team fighting. Because then if you can't do the other stuff, at least you got the team fighting. At least you got the hands. And if WE can't do that, then I don't know what else they got going for them. So it's tough.
And especially in this current meta, right, where you've got the Grubs and the Herald and the Drakes, there's a lot of earlier game team fights than there used to be. It used to be very much that you sat in your lane for the first 17, 18 minutes of a game, then you start moving out to team fight around the Baron. Maybe you'd move around for Drakes, but it wasn't so much built around it. In the current meta, team fights are everything, and that does mean that WE struggling so much in them, really not a good look. At the same time, though, I would like to turn a little bit of our attention towards EDG, because we're giving WE a lot of, you know, ire, let's say. They've not been a great team so far, but EDG, in their previous matchup, had a monumental lead that they were able to just completely throw away.
Yeah. And the last time these two teams played against each other, it was a similar story where WE had a decent early game, playing mostly through Taeyoon on the bottom side of the map. But EDG were totally content and just saying, all right, on Wink, you need to chill. Wink, we're actually going to roam you over to the top side, play for the advantage of ZDZ, which is, you know, something up until before this split wasn't really something that EDG was known for, at least with, you know, this core. But ever since On has reunited with Wink, who, as a former bot lane duo pair, mostly on the IG squad for... I want to say the years of 2021, 2022, maybe 2023 before they were eventually split up going into 2024. The reunion, even though they haven't necessarily always excelled as a bottom lane duo and compared to the landscape of duos that we have in the LPL, I feel like their presence and their chemistry has really revitalized the rest of the EG squad.
Yeah. Absolutely, and they really needed that after what was not a good split one. Seeing EDG actually be able to pick themselves up at least a win versus W in the first round, maybe a second one here, would be a lot better for them. Like we've been saying, that third place, trying to avoid Group Nirvana, very impossible. As Monki, this is what he loves to do. He loves to come from weird angles, try to disrupt his enemy jungler. You're a lot stronger than a Lilia right now.
Both have Smite. We're going to see how well Monki can try and pull this off. I imagine that he's just going to look for the Smite. There's the Eep 600.
Oh, no!
Xiaohao, I mean, to be fair, he didn't know. Monki yoinks it away. 9 HP on the red buff. Says, thank you for the leash, brother. And now he's going to retreat back over to the bottom side of the quadrant, denying further camps from Xiaohao while he is just forced to retreat. And in fact, Monki is going to try to press this advantage, still knowing that Xiaohao is still level 2.
He's on vision, though. He has been spotted out, and you can see the bot lane immediately going to roam over from EDG. This could become a bit of a skirmishing team fight right now, something we've just talked about how WE aren't great at. Need to be careful. I think Monki doesn't want to go for this one. You need to not lose the advantage you've just gained for yourself by stealing away that red buff. Go pick up your own. Make sure it's not going to be a return or anything. Keeping Xiaohao on vision as well, going to be very impactful for them, just knowing exactly where this Lily is at.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's nice that you can steal the red buff. It definitely makes, you know, even the most sane and stable jungle main a little irked. But Xiaohao is still up on jungle camp tempo. So, like, denying red buff isn't actually the end of the world for Lilia. As long as she's getting resources and camps, that's fine. Now, if she gets ganked like that, now Vampire flashing with the dredge line forces Xiaohao's own flash, and that's going to make Xiaohao a little bit more suspect to any potential future invades that WE will try to leverage against the Lilia.
And as much as Lilia very, very fast, not particularly mobile in these early stages of the game, Monki going to continue pressing this advantage. They're just trying to make this Lilia as uncomfortable as possible. See if they can play around here. Hex Flash over the wall. Wink might be in trouble. Has to flash. Dang.
Forced to flash, but he goes down with the crash down. On now backing up the rest of EDG and Vampire. Now that he's down to flash, they just gifted first blood over to the Kaisa. And I have to question whether WE really wanted to actually push the limit that far just to give On a nice boost in the early game.
I love that aggression right there out of Wink. Flashes over the wall, crash down straight back over, knows that he can keep the pressure up right there, and results in the first blood here for EDG. And this is the problem that WE have been running into. Yes, we've been talking about how it's team fights as the main problem, and it is. I'm sure we will see that later on in this game as well. But also, Monki has been feeling so much pressure, you have to imagine, because the team's been struggling to get these early advantages, that he's been over-pressuring, fighting way too aggressively. In the previous games, there were a ton of dives top lane that just were not working out for them. They weren't getting any actual advantages for themselves, but they were just constantly trying to push the tempo forward. In this one, again, the same. You get the steal off of the red buff, wonderful. But then they try to press the advantage way too much and end up outstaying their welcome in EDG's jungle.
Yeah, because you can be content with just at least going back to farming your own camps, and then what you can do is playing for respawn camps on Xiaohao's top side of the jungle. You'll get a lot more value that way, but I think you're absolutely right. WE, in all their losses, I mean, this is a roster change, bringing in Monki after they were able to win their only game against, the name escapes me, but over in the first split, and I think that was enough confidence for WE to say, you know what, we need to go with Monki going into split 2. But then a lot of the games that Monki was in, he looked very lost. He looked very confused on how he wanted to press his advantages, and, you know, desperation was a big key term in a lot of their losses in the first round of that group, of this group stage here. And I think they're just really trying pretty much everything, because when you're down 0-4 in the group stage round, you can't just play a passive game. And to that, I can kind of respect what they're trying to do.
I can respect that they're trying to push the advantage, and Lily a pretty good champion to try push that advantage into. It's just they're not understanding the times when you can go. There's so much pressure here, as this is a weird dive out of EDG in the bot lane. I'm not sure that one's going to work out for them either. Yeah, we can't exactly absolve either of these teams from having odd decision-making at times, as we do see Monki manages to pick up 3 of those grubs. Now, in the previous match that we just watched, the grubs were one of the main things that led to victory for Weibo, it was. And so I can see why WE would like to grab this in this situation, right? You've got some decent pressure onto towers. You want to keep it away from EDG as well. And with the attempted dive bot lane not working out, it isn't like EDG have even been able to trade that one back for the Drake.
Yeah. See, these are the macro wins that you can reliably count on from WE. You don't always need to... Obviously, the pressure onto Xiaohao, when managed correctly, can be effective, but you can also just take the guaranteed advantages. The Xiaohao not going to feel safe walking up into, you know, contesting River when he doesn't have flash. You can just go for both neutral objectives, and because of the natural pushing lane states that you have between Corki mid and the Ezreal and the Nautilus, you should have freedom to just rack up these neutral objectives, and this can set up WE in a pretty solid early game state.
Absolutely, and it's not like this composition is gonna make teamfighting particularly tricky. You've got a ton of really good teamfighting tools available to you. It's very much going to be down to the execution, not the draft, that will lose these teamfights for WE. Yeah, the fact that they're actually going to be able to pick themselves up this Drake as well. This has been an impressive early game in terms of objective control from Monki, as long as we can look past that little bit of over-aggression down in the bottom side of the map.
Just erase that part from the ledger, you know?
I think it's fine. I'm not too worried about looking past that one right here. You give over 1 kill, it's to the Kaiser, it's not ideal, but also into this lane specifically. It's not like you're into a hyper-aggressive matchup bot lane, where you could constantly be getting kills onto your opposition ADC. It's not like you're up against, I don't know, the Callista right here. That would make this matchup really, really hard. Ezreal, he's going to be fine. He's going to be able to still keep up all of the farming, and if Vampire has to leave the lane and go elsewhere and help out Monki on fights, on objectives, that's fine too.
Yeah. Just a few seconds away from the 9-minute mark, where the second round of grubs will be spawning shortly afterwards. Still quite a ways away before our second dragon of the game, and apart from the spicy action we got in the first 2-3 minutes of the game, it has been relatively quiet for both teams. Now, EDG, some big spikes that we want to talk about, since a lot of these big carries are mostly on the scaling side. EDZ really wants to wait for that 2-item breakpoint, as he's now trying to safely push out this lane. Might be forced to flash. Oh, the public execution didn't go through, but at least he's able to sidestep his way out of there, not having to burn a summoner spell to escape WE's grasp.
But he's going to be kept around right here, and we've seen WE love a dive top lane. Things easy, just going to have to back away from this one. You really don't want to get caught out in this situation. But we'll lose out on a ton right here as Monki just continues to play bodyguard, make sure that ZZ isn't able to step up. Losing a full minion wave right now, not going to feel good, not into this matchup especially. Oh no!
Oh no! CDZ! He thought he was walking through safe jungle territory. He's going to lose his flash at the cost of that, as Cube and Karis were already rotating on over to support the top lane push for as many plates as possible. And at least for EDG, On is getting some plates on the bottom side of the map.
And this is the early game that we really want to see out of WE, where they're actually getting themselves advantages across the map. It's not really translating at the moment into big gold lead, but that's fine. It's all in the intangibles at the moment. The gold lead will come. You can see it's slowly going to begin to form right here. Like you said, there is a trade back happening in the bottom lane by Arn. It's not the end of the world right now. ZDZ doesn't die. That would have been devastating, but losing Flash as the Ambessa, yeah, she's got a lot of dodging and weaving that she can do innately, but you still really like to have that Flash to be able to reposition mid-team fight, keep yourself safe, and it looks like this first tower is going to go over to WE. This is a much better team fight, a much better early game for them.
Yeah, like you said, you know, giving over first blood to Kaisa, not ideal in the case of WE, but you've been able to bounce back by giving Taeyoon a ton of plates solo, and then a full turret, not totally solo, but a pretty nice injection of gold that at least puts him on item parity with On, making sure that the Kai'Sa's not ahead. And the Ezreal is going to have that Trinity Force spike, Muramana spike, relatively around the same time that On will have his 2-item spike. And that is a point where WE can feel the most comfortable about taking team fights.
Absolutely, and team fights will come relatively soon. You know, we're only 12 minutes into the game. The next Drake, minute and a half away. We'll have the Herald spawning up in not too long as well. So far, EDG really haven't felt like they particularly wanted to engage themselves into team fights. Makes sense early on, but now that you've got that Galio ulti up and available, you've got a lot of good AoE ultis you can use. It'll be interesting to see when they actually decide to try pull the trigger, when they feel comfortable enough to really go for these team fights. This composition really does come online at around 2 to 3 items, so it's still a while away for EDG, but I do think with the way WE have been running this early game, EDG, they're going to be forced to get involved a little bit earlier potentially than they would really like.
Now for EDG, not like they have been set super far behind. ZDZ, I think he's going to try to kill the minion wave, just understanding. Oh, but he sets himself up for an angle to get through Cube with the public execution on the escape. Just good quick thinking there from the Ambessa. Down an ultimate.
Oh no.
He's going to play in Cube's face just to see if he can bait in for a Xiaohao collapse. Cube is still standing his ground. He's going to try to trade at least one kill back. And the flash from Cube's Rumble will at least silence ZDZ for now. But that's a nice kill picked up for Xiaohao's Lilia.
But look what they're missing out on right here, EDG. Bot lane, they're going to end up losing a ton of plating off of this tower. Not sure if they're going to be able to fully take it down, although 6 grubs means that this one is melting pretty fast. Either way, they can pull back onto this Drake as well. And continues does the dominance for WE getting these objectives. Just really good cross-map play for themselves. And the fact that you don't even lose Cube completely by himself. He manages to take a kill for himself as well. Really well executed right here. Out of the bottom team in this group.
Yeah, I mean, WE are really throwing every punch they've got in the book to at least tie up with EDG. Because if they can at least bring their game score overall to a 1-4, they'll tie EDG. And then it's just pretty much up to themselves against Weibo Gaming later today. And then EDG versus BLG to determine if they'll have to go to a tiebreaker for that 3rd seed, or if miraculously, you know, I don't know if,
crazier things have happened.
Yeah, crazier things have happened, not just today, in other groups. So, you know, and that's the beauty of LPL. And WE with their strength on the map right now, they're going to force EDG away from the Dragon Pit, be able to net themselves the 2nd dragon of the game. And again, the early game from WE continuing to be solid.
Yeah, it really has been, but again, it's not been the big issue for them. Over-aggression in the early game, potentially, but team fights is where it's been really, really tricky. To be fair, when you're up by this much gold at the moment, it's not making your team fights easily won, but it's certainly going to help put them into a good spot to be able to actually play these ones out. And as first items have come through onto pretty much all of the carries at this point, I think WE are in an incredibly strong position to be able to actually start running the map at the moment. We'll see what they're actually going to be able to do with it. As right now, Herald going to be the next objective that everybody's going to be looking towards. We've avoided any multi-man team fights so far, other than a little bit of a skirmish in the bottom side jungle. So let's see. I think EDG, they're not going to want to just give this one up completely solo, but I don't know that they're strong enough at the moment to really compete.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because, one items for a majority of these carries from EDG is not necessarily the most terrifying thing to play against, whereas WE, even though ideally you want to wait for more Monas to come in for Karis and Taeyoon respectively, Trinity Force Corki and Trinity Force Ezreal does a decent amount of damage if you can get into setup first, lay down the poke, and make it so that EDG's really compromise on whether they want to take that objective, then that's always an advantage that you can use to just drive home that Rift Herald opportunity for yourselves.
Absolutely, and it is going to be very much on these junglers to start a bit of these fights to really initiate things. Unfortunately, Vampire going to miss that hook, and now might be caught out here.
Forced to flash away. The Magnet Storm and On dives right behind Vampire. Now they have to reposition, but here comes Angel with the hero's entrance. Buys some time. Wink manages to limp away. Monkey falls, and Karis and Taeyoon have lost their front line, so they don't have the space to put in the damage. And just like that, Bloxer, our concerns, our doubts have come back to haunt WE again.
Dang it, WE! The second that multiple members are involved in a fight, they immediately end up losing out onto this one. And this is a fight that WE wanted to take. They're in a stronger position than their opponents at the moment. But instead of finding a good angle, it's Vampire going flying in, trying to hit this initial hook. And you can see it right here. The second that this hook misses, things are already off to a terrible start. Is he aiming there? Is he aiming for Xiaohao or for Wink? Because it looked like he was aiming for Wink there. Trying to get that initial hook onto the rail, never going to help. You're just giving her an extra way into this fight. And you can see it right here. EDG, they use all of these ultis to perfection just to be able to clean house, turn it into the Herald as well. And this is just terrible for WE, because all of that early advantage you managed to pick up for yourself, all of the pressure you put down, the well-executed macro in the early game, it doesn't matter if you cannot teamfight.
Yeah, and it's not just the micro decisions, but it's also just the awareness of where all the members of WE relative to each other. Even if Vampire starts up that fight, Karis is collapsing, but not in position to immediately deal damage. Taeyoon had thrown a True Shot Barrage, but doesn't necessarily want to jump right into the face of all of that CC setup from EDG. So, now, game isn't necessarily over for WE. The gold lead is now just barely even, if not slightly an advantageous state for EDG. There's still objectives that WE can play for, but EDG, just like in the previous time that these two teams matched up against each other, they will not give WE a second chance if WE mess up again.
No, absolutely not. EDG, they have hopefully learned from their mistake up against Weibo on having such a big advantage and just throwing it all away. See right now, EDG defend their mid lane tower, are going to be pushing on towards this bottom lane one. Top, not got any push going through at the moment, but at least establishing themselves control around this bottom side is going to help for this upcoming Drake fight. 50 seconds until that one, and key ultis are back up and available for both of these teams. EDG's team fight composition really can work so well if they just get a little bit of initial front to back, and then you can get people jumping into the back line. ZZZ on. They need to be careful not to over-aggress early on. WE, it's a little bit tricky. You're pretty reliant on either Vampire or Monki getting that big engage off for you. Now, Monkey's on a great champion to be able to do that, you know? If you can get that impale onto a couple people, brilliant. In that original team fight we just saw, he was not able to do so. Around Drake might be a little bit easier, though.
Yeah. Comes down to if WE can get into the river first. So, Taeyoon and Cube linking up so that they can get push on this mid wave. Tier 1 is threatened to collapse if Taeyoon is ever alone with it, as Z, good poke! Good poke from Taeyoon. On is now chunked about to a third of his HP, so he has to be a bit more careful about choosing whether he wants to dive into a Corki and an Ezreal with that killer instinct off of the back of an EDG engage. But the Rift Herald by EDG will at least give them a window to regain control of mid lane.
Yeah, I mean, could well be that WE just headed towards that Drake, tried to push onto it, but instead they're going to be forced to rotate round. Not going to be the full tower going down by the Herald, but EDG get complete control over the Drake pit because of this play, and it is going to be started up. Do you want to flip it, though? I don't think so.
WE. This could be defining not just the game, but their placement in this group. Ooh. EDG immediately going in. Xiaohao flash Q for the Lilting Lullaby, forces Vampire out. Not the ideal target. Monki, he steals it. That's 3 dragons now for WE now. They just have to kite on back and play for their carries. Hero's entrance goes in, but a massive Magnus Storm from Wing, and On finds his moment. They don't need a damn dragon. EDG are just better.
This is so quintessential of both of these teams. EDG flips it, gets the Drake stolen, doesn't matter, team fight win for them, and Wink, what a Magnet Storm that was. Just gorgeous. Off the back of a team fight that looked like it was not going to go so well into their favor. WE, they cannot team fight. I'm sorry, at this point you can just say it straight up. This is not a team that is able to team fight at all. And again, they just get destroyed, baited in a little bit too far, not particularly thinking about all of these AoE defensive tools you've got. Angel with the ulti, Wink with the ulti. If you cannot instantly blow up both on Xiaohao and ZDZ, you don't win these fights.
Do we even need to see this replay?
Why flip it? That's my other question. I get the idea here from Xiaohao to go flash in, get the Q off, try for the Lilting Lullaby, but it actually only lands onto Monki and Vampire. The steal is nice from Monki, but then they go for this fight. Vampire goes flashing in. Watch Wink, though. Watch Wink. Sees the angle right here. 4 people in a row all get pulled right in. It's just disgusting, isn't it? And then Angel gets the 4-man taunt off as well. AoE CC wins team fights that are messy in close quarters like this. And let's see.
They rushed the Otacon.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? So, all right, Blockster, I have a proposal. We don't have a way to actually call over to China and like get into the comms of WE. But what if we tell them, hey guys, what if you just split push the rest of the game?
Literally never team fight again.
Just go for turret destruction.
Yeah, just try for it. You know what? With the 6 grubs, having Atacon, there's a chance it could work. I can see it. I mean, it's not a good strategy, but it is a strategy.
Hey, you got Trinity Force, you got more mana, you deal some decent turret damage, you know? Don't get me wrong. You would ideally like to play front to back with this composition, you know? But somehow, some way, they keep lining up for these multi-man engages from EDG.
The only team I've ever wanted to play Yorick on my screen. Because you're right, Evan. Why do they keep going for these big team fight compositions when they clearly aren't able to execute well onto them? I think it's because if you're trying to team fight on a good team fighting composition and you're bad at it, it's at least easier than with a poor team fight comp, but still, it's just making these games hilarious. It's making these games hilarious for us because we're watching them going...
The entertainment value is just skyrocketing.
It is. You go to it going, they're not going to be able to team fight, and then, guess what? You would be right. They are not able to team fight. Still, WE, they've pushed up really far right now. They're going to be trying onto this tier 2 tower in the bottom lane, but even with the 6 scrubs, I don't know that they've got enough to really be able to push onto this one fully. At least they've got the push going through the mid lane as well, trying to move forwards on a couple of different fronts. We've got the Baron spawning in a minute and a half's time. That's going to make this significantly easier if WE are actually able to pick up that objective.
Yep. And I'll give them props. The resilience and the fortitude is at least persevering at the moment. Since, you know, if we had gotten 6 scrubs, we had the massive early game advantage just off of macro. My jungle steals the dragon.
Yeah.
And then we get wombo comboed like that. I'm all F4ing right then and there. I'm like, what's the point, man? But you know what?
But EDG love throwing. EDG
You have
love
a
a
point.
throw. They love a throw. Right now, it's only a 2k gold lead, so it wouldn't be a massive throw at the moment. WE have at least kept this one close, but I've seen EDG throw some big boy leads.
All right, well, WE, can they count on EDG to gift wrap them game back?
Oh, we'll see.
This is for third seed implications. Yeah, WE, I mean, like we said before, if WE can actually tie this up, then there's the potential for an additional tiebreaker game. That would determine
hang
third
on.
seed. Oh, ZDZ might be caught out. Here comes a hero and Angel. ZDZ is popped by the True Shot Barrage. On joins the fight, but the equalizer, he's got to dance around it. Here comes Wink, another massive Magnet Storm. Angel tries to assist, but Xiaohao and On can't get into the fight. On survives, but just before he takes down Taeyoon in the backside, it actually was Karis, because Taeyoon is still alive. He's popping off the Ezreal, and this time, WE, can they protect him? No, but he's left alone. Xiaohao locks him down alongside the rest of EDG, and that was probably the best fight that WE could have hoped for. And it just isn't enough.
No, the golden right there out of Zhao, who just keeps him alive long enough that this fight just flips once again. It's another aggressive play out of WE. They've been the one pulling the trigger in basically every single one of these fights, and the initial pick works really well. They managed to actually pick up ZDZ in a one-tap, never actually able to escape, even with the flash available. Great impale right here out of Monki. But then it just takes enough time that Angel's able to get involved, that everybody else is able to come and roam around to this fight already. The equalizer out of Cube only lands onto one member. It doesn't really do all of the damage it needs to across the course of this fight, but I still thought that Taeyoon was going to be able to turn it around. At this moment, right here, it looks so good for Taeyoon, but he's not able to pick up any of the initial kills, and I think it's that right there. That dash forwards for him that pulls him just so out of position where the golden then comes through, not able to pick up the kill. Maybe if he turns around onto Wink in that situation, picks up a kill onto the Rel, makes it a 2v1 rather than a 3v1, it's easier. But it's just another loss right here for WE.
Yeah, just playing with this space and being able to eliminate how many CC tools are available from EDG. I will say, it was so freaking sexy that Taeyoon instant Captain Jack cleanse the Rel stun and instantly went forward. I was believing. I was like, well, wait a minute, you know?
Hang on,
Because like early in the day, we saw the Taeyoon Ezreal damage graph. Almost, what, 42% of his team's damage? There's a reason why WE, despite On getting first blood gifted this game, that they put so much resources into giving Taeyoon literally 2 full towers worth of plates just to make sure that he wasn't falling behind in terms of item parity. And for a brief second, you could see the vision. You could see that Taeyoon on the Ezreal coming over from LCK, the Challengers League, and both DRX Challengers and the Kwangdong Freaks Challenger system. You could see why that there is potential in the talent. And that just, it's so close, but still not enough.
Yeah, he had us believing for a couple of seconds right there. Unfortunately, EDG pretty much immediately slammed that door closed, and now they're getting themselves a good amount of setup right here around the Baron. Actually going to start this one up. There's no vision in the area right now. They're at least going to be able to spot it out with the True Shot Barrage, but you're walking in blind to this one. Not a great situation for this composition.
On doesn't have summoner spells for this fight, but Xiaohao does have flash.
Oh!
4K, Monki, multi-man impale, but is anyone there? Nice equalizer from Cube, and now Xiaohao's in a world of trouble, but the re-engage from ZDZ, and Angel with the hero's entrance at least evens up the fight. 1 for 1, but no jungler for WE. They cannot contest the Baron, but at least they pushed EDG off the pit.
Oh, I mean, Monki, that's devastating there. Getting the nice 3-man impale with a composition with an equalizer. I have to assume Cube just wasn't quite close enough. Maybe didn't have it up. We'll see on the replay, I imagine, because instantly dropping that equalizer on top of everybody held right there in the impale, that would have been the teamfight 1 for WE. Instead, the things are delayed, it takes a little bit too long, ZDZ goes flying into the backline. Now, if you take a look at what he's built, he is not particularly tanky at the moment, just immediately gets one tap, but still, you end up getting the fight. Look at this though, Monki, 2-man, he just wasn't in range. He just wasn't there. That's so unfortunate for them, because if you manage to actually get that burn more onto those key carries, things are completely different here. They're just out of time. They're just not playing like a team who's had as much time together as they had. You know, this is the second round robin. This is do or die right now. We keep talking about not wanting to be the bottom team in these placements. Group Nirvana, the bottom two teams are done for the year. Like that. If you thought the first split was wild in terms of the way that the split functioned with 3 best of 5s and then maybe your split's done, well, on this one, if you do badly, you're done for summer as well. It's a crazy format we've got here on the LPL, and it's so important to get yourself out of that spot. WE, they just aren't able to play together enough to really do so.
And on the other side, EDG have just been the benefactors of putting this roster swap together. On and Wink have clearly brought something special, at least to EDG. A lot more than what we were getting out of them in the first split. One of the more non-existent teams now, this time showing a lot more fight, a lot more gumption. Baron going down to 2K. Monki, can he make it again? No, not this time. It is secured by Xiaohao. Wink making sure that Vampire cannot get far as On layers down the Cathian rain. Monki getting slept by the lilting lullaby. On is still on the hunt, on the pursuit, getting zoned, getting a little too close to the double marksman, and a good equalizer from Cube forces EDG away, but Angel teleports, sees maybe an opportunity to section them off, but the rest of his damage dealers are gone, and he's forced to Justice Punch away.
Just going to be 1 kill onto the sport right there for EDG. Obviously, the Baron going to be the bigger thing for them to have just picked up, and the Drake is now up and available. This would be sold for WE if they're able to grab it for themselves right now. Everybody has reset, spent their gold. That's a ton of extra items and power in EDG's back pockets, and it's going to be up to Monki for another steal. He has vision at least. I really don't think he's going to be able to grab this one, and indeed Monki agrees. It's just going to back off, and so it's another Drake into the back pockets of EDG. Baron empowered minions pouring through these waves as well. WE, their time in this group is coming to a rapid close.
WE, I mean, I think Monki just realized that if he had thrown his life away just for an Infernal Soul, with EDG, Baron empowered minions pouring in through multiple lanes, it could have just been the end of the game. You have Cube trying to push through on the top side and create some split push pressure and at least equalize the amount of turret destruction that EDG are being able to will for themselves in this Baron's push play. But at least that will buy some time for WE. But I'm with you, Bloxer. The noose is starting to tighten, and WE, the amount of options available are starting to run thin.
Really is. It's gonna have to be a massive team fight for them, right? They don't exactly have a composition that can really go for picks. Maybe if Monki gets a massive flank angle and you're able to grab someone while they're off by themselves, you can do it, but it's really, really tricky. It's not the sort of composition where, yeah, we could just go all in onto one person, pick them up, and then we'll 4v5 the team fight. That'll be a lot easier. It's really not like that at all. You can see right now ZDZ going to be pushing through this top wave. Also going to be a push going on in the middle. And WE, they're kind of grouping up in bushes, trying to go for something. Going to get spotted out, though, with the bowling ball. And yeah, it's a bit of a desperation play even looking for that.
You got to try. I can respect it from WE, but EDG, for them, they have multiple long-range tools to sniff out any cheese push plays like that. Sending 4 members to defend the tier 2 on the top side. Meanwhile, Karis answering in the mid lane just to hold off for now. 12 seconds until the Baron buff does expire. A decent amount of gold was accumulated during this time, around 3,000 for EDG, which makes the overall gold advantage 5,000. Very commanding, very dominant, and a stark reminder of what happened between these two teams in the first round of this group stage, where EDG very dominantly and very confidently put away WE.
Oh yeah, I mean, in that game, WE managed to find themselves 5 kills the whole time. They've at least exceeded that, 6 kills on the team, but it... Yeah, exactly. And hey, so do WE, so do EDG as well. They've also got 1 extra kill that they had in the previous one. It's a little bit bloodier of a game, perhaps. And to be fair, this one still isn't over. As much as the Baron power play was pretty good out of EDG, they're able to get a lot of pressure. They've not actually been able to crack the base right here of WE. They're still fine. The scaling still can continue to happen. The thing is, the scaling is a little bit in the advantage of EDG. I think when they can just fully go in with this Lilia, and you can see it right now, 10 stacks right here on the Medjais. 0 deaths, 607 right now for Xiaohao is just in such a strong position.
Yeah. A nightmare scenario that WE were trying to prevent with all the reckless invades into Xiaohao's jungle early on to the game.
He's up 3k gold. He's up 3k gold. I mean, it's not the biggest of CS leads. I've seen Lilia's Flame Horizon all the time, so that is something, but it really doesn't matter. You're up a full item right now on your opponent, and for good reason. It has just been a very impressive early game so far. You can see right here, Observer's showing us brilliantly the vision that you actually have available to you right now as WE. It's a very small map for them at the moment. EDG run the jungle, both theirs and their opponents, and it's going to make stepping out for these objectives really tricky. Both are spawning at the same time, though. We're going to have Baron and Drake up at pretty much the exact same instant, which is going to open up an interesting question right here. Do WE just want to go full commit themselves for the Drake? Maybe try to pick themselves up that Infernal Soul? That could be huge for their ability to play the team fights. But on the other side, does EDG care? Because they can just pick themselves up a Baron and then crack the base open. I don't know that Infernal Soul is going to be that big of an issue to them. It's up to them. EDG, because they're in such a strong position, because they own the jungle, they have complete control over which of these objectives they think is more important.
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a mental game for EDG. Do they think that WE wants to prioritize the Infernal Soul more than anything else? Or do they actually want to bank on EDG playing into that fear to let WE have a chance to sneak Baron as a cross trade? Because that could be a legitimate way to stall out the game. As Angel is trying to lurk around for a flank, and they spotted him out, but they haven't spotted out ZDZ, so a double flank. Another Magnet Storm running to the front line. Taeyoon and Karis have distanced themselves well. Wing falls. Angel tries to follow up. ZDZ is there. On flashes it away, trying to distance himself out. Angel buys enough time with the taunt into the stasis, but it still could look good for WE, but they're losing health bars on both of their damage dealers. Karis and Taeyoon forced to flee. Cube survives alongside his double marksman, but EDG have done enough damage to secure themselves another dragon.
All of the carries survive through that fight, despite the fact it's a complete and utter mess. But like you said, straight over onto this Drake right now, but double teleports right here out of WE. I think they potentially wanted to try play around that Drake. It just falls way too fast, with the jungler still alive for EDG. Always going to be picked up by them. Double teleports expended means you need to get something out of this as WE, I guess.
Maybe?
Well, the crab at least, that's something.
Alright.
This flank out of ZDZ is huge, but it's the Magnet Storm once again to start it out. Lands onto a key couple of carries. Taeyoon even has to flash away at the beginning of this one. My only question was why it took quite so long right there for ZDZ to actually get into that fight. Was kind of walking around the back of it for a really long time, but still, the moment that he's actually able to get in, get involved, it just completely opens up the team fight. You go from being in a pretty good position as WE to being completely on the back foot, surrounded by opponents. And that will be the third Drake for EDG. They're going to start up the Baron, though, RWE.
Little tricky. Already a lot of damage from Xiaohao. Thankfully, Vampire is quite tanky at this point in the game, so he's not going to go down. For WE will be forced to reset, but that'll give an opportunity for EDG to move on into the river, start clearing out the vision. They're not going to be able to deal with the crab vision. So at least for WE's sake, they're content that they'll still have some eyes on whether this Baron is being started up, and EDG just hoping that WE get a little eager and face check into multiple CCs, and now is the time they try to rush it down.
Alright, my eyes right here going to be on Taeyoon. Can he carry his team through this fight? Can Monki potentially steal away this Baron as well? It's going fast.
EDG are trying to drop it. Baron fully resets. Taeyoon, no summoner spells available, so he has to be precise. Arcane shifts away from ZDZ's engage. Here comes Angel with the hero's entrance as well. ZDZ is sectioned off. Taeyoon is playing out of his mind. He finds on. Wait a minute. That's a main damage dealer gone from EDG. Xiaohao could be the next one to fall. Forced to retreat. And WE find that second win to push themselves through such a difficult 38-minute banger. But it's enough for WE to secure the Baron for themselves, unless Xiaohao has another thing to say about it. He tags Monki, tries to get in range. 1600. Monki secures the Baron. Xiaohao forced to pop the stasis. Was this the throw from EDG? It comes down to ZDZ and Angel, but I don't think these are the type of carries that can eliminate the rest of WE. They walk away safely. The Baron is secure for themselves, and suddenly Bloxer, they're back in the game.
Can't teamfight versus loves a good throw, and that was such a mistake right there out of EDG. They think they've got the engage angle once again. It's the combo they're relying on right now, the public execution into the hero's entrance, but it just takes way too long for it to come through. You're not able to actually land it onto any of those key members right here. And yeah, look at that. Arn just gets caught way too far forwards. Nice job, Monki, finding the impale that he had to. And it means that EDG scattered to the four corners. They're not actually going to be able to play this one out. And picking up the Baron on the backside of this one is huge. I was slightly worried the steal was going to come through. No flash out of Xiaohao, so there was a tricky entrance into the pit. The steal was allowed in. You know, you don't actually defend the pit very well here as WE. Still, the smite comes through. Monki, the MVP in that team fight there.
The fact that WE were able to keep eyes and tabs on, noting from that prior fight that while Taeyoon was down a flash, so was On, because he had dove way deep and then immediately realized, oh, I need to flash out of this cluster. So both of the key marksmen down that summoner spell, and Monki not wasting that moment, being able to set up Taeyoon for an easy pickoff. Now EDG gonna have to maintain a little bit more composure going into what could be the Infernal Soul, what could be the last fight of this game.
And the thing with WE's composition is that it has such great poke as well, so you're never really going into these team fights as EDG on full HP, and it's making it a lot trickier to really find that a bit of engage that they really need to. You really have to get the combo off. Wink, Angel, and ZDZ all have to play this one out together to make these team fights work for EDG. They've done it multiple times. We've seen that. It's not like they can't do it. Right now, making it look a little bit trickier than potentially it needs to be. Next Drake gonna be spawning up in 30 seconds time. That's gonna be Soul for whoever is able to pick this one up. EDG, it could be a 4 Infernal Drake Soul, which would just give them so much extra damage in these team fights. WE, they cannot afford to give that one up.
So spooky for EDG. Both On and Taeyoon now have both of their summoner spells up, so they can play with a little bit more freedom, but Wink has been chunked out by the massive poke, and Monki is thinking about looking for an engage right now. The flash and
he gets it!
Oh! He tried to flash it, but he still got snagged! EDG, their AD carry's gone. Wink tries to bail his AD carry out. ZDZ's trying to go crazy into the backline, trying to look for that Ambessa montage, but he just goes down. Xiaohao, the only member alive. We got On limping away as well, but they've lost 2 crucial frontline members in ZDZ and Wink. WE, they have the full rights to the Infernal Soul.
Oh, this is just the game we've been waiting for out of Monki. He's been the driving force for this team in their early games. He's been everything they've needed him to be early on, but just hasn't been able to play out team fights well enough. Well, no more, apparently, in this game with the Skarner, one of the strongest jungle picks we've seen. They are pushing through this base right now for EDG. If they go for the end, I think that's a bit of a mistake. Still, though, 20 seconds on ZDZ.
Yeah, the equalizer pushes EDG away, but they don't have the minion wave to go for the game, and you can tell that WE are frothing at the mouth just for an opportunity to equalize their position in the group standings.
Health bars.
That moment is going to have to wait. WE have to be careful now. And ultimate cooldowns are coming back up for EDG, and if they do not play this Infernal Soul carefully, they could cost everything. Xiaohao is just into the pit. Are we gonna test it like this?
Wait, what?
But Taeyoon somehow is the one that secures the Infernal Soul. Oh my goodness, this game is delivering on just the ridiculousness factor. WE somehow managing to limp away from the Infernal Soul, tucked into their back pockets, and EDG, there's not much they can do on the map at this point.
I'm losing my mind. I really am losing my mind in this one. This fight is brilliant right here out of WE. We can criticize the macro play that they make afterwards, but the Lilting Lullaby hits onto a couple members. It just doesn't matter though. Monki though goes flying in, and I was like, all right, is the impale happening now? The prediction. The prediction. It's a prediction as well to make it that much sweeter. The fact that Wink also gets taken out when he goes for the engage, doesn't actually manage to get that big magnet storm off, and it just turns into a complete disaster of a play out of EDG. The question I have here is why they don't pull back onto the Drake quicker. They could have pushed up to get themselves the inhibitor and then pulled back and not made it a 50-50. WE were, what, like 12 HP on that dragon away from having Xiaohao steal it away? That would have been devastating after you've just found the best team fight you've had all split.
I would even dare say all season long. I mean, we might have to go back into the WE AL match where Monki absolutely popped off on the Viego to make it happen, but I mean, I love the fact that you brought up Monki's trials and tribulations in this second split, because it has been extremely rough, but being able to show up clutch in few key moments in this game has really kept WE in a position that we thought they didn't deserve to be in for quite some time, but now they are just one more good fight away from being able to close this game out. But rightfully so, EDG could also flip the script despite being down in Infernal Soul. It all comes down to teamfight execution as the equalizer forces EDG away from the mid lane. Angel is that? Oh, Xiaohao tries to go in. Lilting Lullaby immediately cleansed on a Taeyoon, so he's fine. EDG trying to throw down the engage. Massive Hero's Entrance. The Impale's gonna buy some time. Xiaohao's trying to find Taeyoon into the backline. On has already fallen. EDG is coming down to Xiaohao. Can he ramp up? No, he can't. Taeyoon still survives. And that's the story, folks. Persistence and endurance. The name of the game for WE. You may have failed 4 times, but that 5th game is yours to claim. They will even the score of the group standings, and that 3rd seed match has become all the more interesting here, Bloxer.
Oh, it felt like W were down and out during the early mid-game, but all of a sudden, EDG, they're just not able to find the fight. Monki had such an impressive game right there, and that final fight came off the back of EDG trying to get aggressive, trying to make that big fight work. Oh my lord. They did it! They've won a game!
Holy moly. We have to call the press, Bloxer. WE can freaking team fight. I almost dropped an F-bomb. I held it. I held it. But my goodness, this is the character arc and the development straight out of a shonen. Let's go, WE. Monki. Massive, massive Skarner game. My goodness. I mean, there are some questionable things in the early game, but you know what? That's
fine.
That's the beauty of the character development arc that we got out of it, where despite some of the mistakes and the slip-ups, you don't let that get to you. You persevere, you push through. Life lesson right there, y'all. If you want to... Oh my gosh. I'm going to stop right there, because I could go on and on and on.
I'm very happy with Monki in this game, because this is the next level that we really need to see out of him. I mean, WE, they got dismantled by the Skarner in their first game versus Weibo. They picked it up for themselves, right? Monki is aggressive on it. I think this is what Monki is going to be. He feels a little bit like, I don't know, a Hillisang type player, where you're going to get some high highs and some low lows. But it's fine, because when the coin flip comes in your favor, oh boy is it nice. And it was just so aggressive right there. The prediction on that Impale, easily one of the sexiest plays that I've seen this split long. It was so nice to see. Knew that the flash was going to come out. And that team fight really is the thing that begins turning things around. Those fights were messes. EDG were not able to get any of the simple front to backs that they wanted. They also weren't able to get the wombo combos off beyond that early stage of the mid game. And so it meant that W were able to keep themselves in it, but really it was Monki throughout the entire game, driving it on. He was starting aggressive and just never let up the pace.
Yeah, I mean, that is the kind of persistence you need as like a salesman. You know, no matter how many doors are shut in your face of whatever you're trying to sell, Monki was trying to sell that I deserve to be on this WE squad. I deserve to be playing in the LPL. And, you know, we go back to split 1 where, you know, Monki comes in to substitute, gets the 1 win for WE against anyone's Legend of all teams, which is no easy feat to deal with since they were our reigning Demacia Cup champions and grand finalists from Split 1. That's enough for WE to put faith in this guy. And, you know, despite the 4 losses that Monki had to go through where he didn't look like he was living up to the promise, this game, he delivers. And it now gives WE another fighting chance for that 3rd seed, to play for the qualifiers, to escape Nirvana, and get into that group ascend.
And Group Ascend's so important for these teams. Everybody has just got to be gunning for it at the moment. And it's so tricky to already have lost those initial 4 games because it puts you in such a bad spot right here. If WE want to secure themselves that 3rd spot, they're going to have to beat BLG in order to do it. Now, as much as this was an impressive game, not sure that's going to be possible. We'll see later on. So we do take a look at the stats throughout this game. There was no massive Ezreal in this one. Honestly, pretty even distribution in terms of who was able to get what done earlier on. And this one, I mean, hey, I thought everybody right here out of both of these teams had good moments. I don't think anybody in this series was too quiet, was too put down. As much as we're talking about the amazing things that WE have done, EDG, they were in position to win this game. Xiaohao was so far ahead at the mid-game and just was never quite able to find that big ulti, that big damage that you really are looking for from a Lilia.
Yeah, I was relatively surprised at how shortcoming the Lilia felt in the last couple of fights, because Xiaohao was at, 3-4 items by that time, had a Medjai Soul Stealer. Lilia should be pumping damage, and somehow
wrecking.
And so I guess, maybe we'll get a chance to look at the fights one last time through the replay montage to see how much, time was Xiaohao actually like ramping blooming blows onto Taeyoon and Karis, because that was the difference maker. The fact that the double Trinity Force marksman did not fall in those last couple of fights. At least either, if Karis fell, Taeyoon was still alive. If Taeyoon was down, Karis was still alive. And, most of the time it was Taeyoon persevering until the very, very end. We saw in this moment where Taeyoon dies, the fight is over. But in this fight, for example, they exchange frontline members, but neither of the key carries go down.
No, and I think also looking at what ZDZ was able to do on this Ambessa was getting into the backline plenty. Had some really nice flanks. Was never really able to do too much with it. Was always having to ulti just onto the first available target. Wasn't actually able to use the public execution onto any of those main carriers. And although there were some good fights out of ZDZ, I just think wasn't able to really push his team forwards with the flank angles that he was given, with the vision they were able to play around. And you can see it in this one. Once again, just sort of jumps into the backline and, doesn't do anything. Is just sat in the backline giving a free kill over again and again.
I'm really going to lock in for this one, because I just want to see, just the way that Karis and Taeyoon were playing. I think in that fight in particular, it seemed like they were making sure to not stack on top of each other, so that any AoE damage that was being layered, if it's forcing Xiaohao to pick. You don't get, the 2-for-1 special and being able to hit both the Corki and the Ezreal. They were spacing pretty damn well and understanding that their composition thrives on just playing at range and never getting in Lilia's space. And player of the game, yeah. I mean,
I would have rioted if it was anyone else in this game.
Impale Flash Prediction just is the cherry on top that really, really secures any doubts in anyone's mind. Well deserved from the player coming up through the EDG development system, a little bit of time in the BLG junior team as well. Finally being able to make his first official year playing in the LPL, and he finds one of the best moments, one of the best plays, one of the sexiest plays, as you called it out, Blockster, of the 2025 LPL season.
Oh yeah, and I think that it just gives me so much hope for the future, right? Because this team, as it currently stands, it's not likely to go very far. Even if you do manage to make it into Group Ascend, I still don't have the biggest, highest hopes for WE. But Monki, that is a player who I think with some more time playing on this top stage under his belt could turn into a really fun player, and it's definitely worth continuing to watch him.
Yeah, these are the core moments that you can build upon for future development, and obviously we'll have to see how WE's story tracks out over the course of the day. and the rest of the split and see how things play out, whether it's the qualifier stage or the Nirvana group or the Ascend group, wherever they end up. But of course, for us, we're going to be throwing into a short break because we still got 2 more best of ones coming your way, y'all, starting with BLG EDG. See you in a few.